The morning sun poured through the glass walls, but the air inside was cold, filled with tension. Emma stood with her hands on her hips, staring straight at Mr. Harris, the man who once controlled every word she spoke. He leaned back in his chair, calm on the outside, but his eyes showed something else, fear. Is this how you talk to your boss? He asked. Emma's voice was sharp, steady. No, Mr. Harris. This is how I talk to someone who lost the right to be one. He frowned, tapping the desk. You think you can run this company better than me? She stepped closer, her heels clicking like thunder. I don't think, sir. I know. Because while you were busy building your empire, I was busy saving it. He tried to speak, but she cut him off. You taught me everything about power. But you forgot to teach me fear. And that's where you lost. The room went silent. Even the city outside seemed to hold its breath. Emma leaned forward. Today, I'm not asking for respect, Mr. Harris. I'm taking it. She placed a file on his desk, her new leadership proposal, and turned to leave. Mr. Harris whispered behind her, almost to himself, she's become what I never could. Without turning back, Emma said, no, Mr. Harris. I became what you never let me be. The door closed, and for the first time, the boss realized the power had changed hands. The sunlight poured through the tall glass windows, but the air inside that office was cold. Behind the desk sat Mr. Harrison, leaning back in his chair with the confidence of a man who thought he owned everything, and in front of him, she stood still, arms crossed, eyes sharp, silence louder than words. Is this how you talk to your boss? Mr. Harrison asked, smirking. She didn't move. Didn't blink, just met his gaze and said quietly, no, Mr. Harrison, this is how you talk to a man who's forgotten his limits. His smirk faded to wrinkles of pride turned into confusion. You really think you're better than me, he said, leaning forward. She took one step closer, the sound of her heels echoing through the room. I don't think so, she said. I know it. When you were building your empire, I was cleaning up your mistakes. When you got power, I was the one swallowing the pain, but not anymore. She placed a folder on his desk, calm, steady. This company stands today because of me, not you. Mr. Harrison's face turned red. You forget who made all this possible. She smiled. But it wasn't soft, it was final. Yes, you built it, but the one who builds and fails to protect isn't remembered as a creator, he's remembered as a warning. The room went silent, only the sound of the ticking clock filled the air. She turned toward the door and said, I'm leaving, Mr. Harrison, but remember this, power doesn't come from the chair you sit on, it comes from the truth you stand on. The door closed behind her, and for the first time, Mr. Harrison could hear something he'd never heard before, his own heartbeat, echoing with fear. The morning light fell sharply through the tall windows, but inside that office, it felt like a storm. He sat behind his desk, calm as always, pretending to be in control. She stood before him, arms crossed, her eyes cold. It wasn't anger that filled the room, it was disappointment. Do you even realize what you've done? She asked quietly. The man leaned back in his chair. I made a decision, he said. That's what leaders do. Her jaw tightened. Leaders, she repeated. You call it leadership when you destroy people's trust? He smirked. This is business, not emotion. She stepped closer, every word hitting harder. No, Mr. Reed, this is emotion, because business doesn't break people, people break people. He tried to look away, but her voice forced him to listen. For years, I believed in you. I defended you. I worked nights, gave up my peace, my life, all for this company, for you, and the moment I started to rise, you made sure I fell. His fingers tapped the desk, slow, uncertain. You were getting too confident, he muttered. She gave a faint laugh, the kind that hides pain too deep to show. Confidence, she said softly. You know, Mr. Reed. You were just afraid that one day, the student would stop obeying the master. Silence filled the air. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. She placed her resignation letter on his desk, calm, steady, final. You taught me everything, she said. Even how to walk away. Then she turned to leave, but paused at the door. You were right about one thing, she said without looking back. Leaders make decisions, and today, I'm making mine, to never let fear disguise itself as power again. The door closed behind her, and for the first time, the great Mr. Reed didn't feel powerful. He just felt small. The office was silent, too silent. He sat behind the desk, hands gripping the papers in front of him, and she stood tall, strong, unshaken, like a storm refusing to calm. Close the door, she said. He hesitated. Why? Because what I'm about to say, she replied, doesn't deserve an audience. Her voice was steady, but her eyes, they burned with everything she'd held back for years. You took my work, my ideas, and you called them yours, she began. You said I wasn't ready for leadership, you said I lacked experience, But tell me something, Mr. Davis, she leaned forward slightly, when you made mistakes, who cleaned them up? He swallowed hard, eyes flickering with guilt. I did what I thought was best for the company. She laughed, cold, sharp, bitter. No. You did what was best for you. He rose from his chair, voice shaking with authority he no longer believed in. You don't talk to me like that, young lady. She stepped closer, her heels striking the floor like thunder. I just did. He froze. All these years, she said, I stayed quiet because I respected you, because I believed loyalty meant silence, but silence has a price, and I'm done paying it. She pulled a file from her bag and placed it on his desk. Every report. Every decision. Every lie. You built your empire on my name, but from today, that ends. He looked at the folder, and for the first time, he looked afraid. You'll regret this, he whispered. She smiled, not kindly, but with the calm of someone finally free. I already did, she said, but not anymore. She turned toward the door, sunlight catching her face as she walked away, and in that moment, he realized she wasn't the same woman he could control. She was stronger, louder, unstoppable.